Kristin.
Thanks, Adam. It's a nice introduction. I was a public defender. Currently now, though, I'm a regulatory attorney and I represent cannabis businesses and hemp businesses. And I do land use as well as real estate. So, Adam, the work that you do is amazing. Thank you so much. The bill that you got is great. I mean, reading it, the language that you got is excellent. You know, it says tolerates. There a DOJ memo that tolerates interstate commerce. That's like the feds could be like, ho hum, fine, okay, Oregon, fine. You get your interstate commerce. So I think that's a win. That's great. It goes all the way through, and I hope you continue to change hearts and minds all across the country. Let's see. There isn't, like Adam said, there isn't much to talk about for interstate commerce with cannabis. It's illegal. Adam's show is the show down here. He's going to hopefully change that, but it's illegal. If you have, an old CC license and you want to transfer out of state, you get caught, you lose your license, and go to jail. That's my legal disclaimer. I am a practicing attorney. I don't give legal advice to big groups. It's all legal information. But yeah, don't do it. You'll lose your license. But there is, thank you, Beth. That's supposed to be too. But there is something to talk about with hemp, interstate commerce, and I wish I could tell you that it was clear cut, but it is not. It is not yet clear cut, and hopefully it will be soon. But as we all know, cannabis that is under 0.3% Delta 9 THC concentration has now been removed from the Controlled Substances Act. It's no longer federally illegal, and that was done through the 2018 Farm Bill. The 2018 Farm Bill, however, still allows states to regulate hemp within their state. It doesn't preempt state law. So it will create federal regulations for states who want to participate in the program, but if a state doesn't want to participate in the program, it can say no hemp. And this is a handy little map right now from the National Conference of States Legislatures. They have compiled state laws for hemp, and the purple ones are the ones that have hemp programs, and the gray ones are the ones that don't. That is important for Oregon because our next door neighboring state, Idaho, still has outlawed hemp. And they tried to get a program passed this year through their legislature and it failed. So they still outlawed in Idaho. And there is a case that is getting lots of attention. I don't know if you've heard about it, but an Oregon hemp farmer drove a truckload of hemp on its way to Colorado, drove it through Idaho, got pulled over by the police and got arrested and had their hemp load seized. They went through, going through the courts with the criminal case, but also their lawyer filed a motion to have the product released and returned to the growers, saying that, hey, this is hemp that was grown lawfully in Oregon, it's going to a lawful state, Colorado, and we just happen to be passing through Idaho. 2018 Farm Bill specifically allows interstate commerce, and so we should be able to drive it through Idaho. And the Idaho District Court said, sorry, the 2018 Farm Bill says interstate commerce is allowed between states that have had a program approved under the federal regulations. And we don't have federal regulations yet, so this is still a question that's up in the air. Don't drive through Idaho. Anyway, that was the district court opinion. They appealed it to the Ninth Circuit. It's moving very fast with the Ninth Circuit. Defendants filed their reply briefs, I think, a few days ago, and we should get an opinion hopefully very soon about what the Ninth Circuit thinks about interstate hemp in this kind of gray area time before we get federal regulations under the 2018 Farm Bill. So hopefully the Ninth Circuit is liberal, and we often see opinions that we like from the Ninth Circuit, but but who knows what's going to happen, and we'll kind of be waiting in the meantime. What Idaho has done, and I wish I could give you kind of the final conclusion here, but I don't know what the final conclusion is. But the Idaho legislature tried to pass their hemp program, didn't go through. So what they did, I think, did pass, I don't know if it's final yet, is a permit to allow people to transport hemp through Idaho. So if, and it was passed by both the House and the Senate in Idaho, but then I think it went back to committee to be conformed because there were different versions, and I'm not sure what the final outcome of that is. But definitely keep an eye out. Either don't drive through Idaho or look to their Department of Agriculture to see if you can get a permit to go through Idaho if you're going through Idaho. And you know, in general, I just also want to reiterate right now that when we're in this time of before the federal regulations for hemp come out, we are still in the gray area. We are still in the state-by-state regulation of hemp. And it's the same as it has been until those rules come out. So when you decide, when you want to sell hemp to, you know, a state that does have a program, what you want to do is take a look. This is a great map. You click on the state and it'll give you the actual citations to the laws. You want to go to the statutes and read the laws of the states where you're passing through and where you're going, to make sure they allow transport, to make sure they allow stuff coming in from other states, to make sure that what you're doing is going to be legal. Then hopefully, once the federal regulations come out, we're going to have a unified system that we can rely on for hemp. And in that vein, if anybody out there is a hemp farmer and wants to have say on the USDA regulations, the USDA is working on those regs right now. They're working feverishly, actually, because they have a deadline they want to meet, which is at the end of this year. They want to have draft rules out by the end of the summer, and then permanent rules out by the end of the year, so that next growing season, everybody knows what to do. I am part of a loose coalition of Western growers who are, we're talking with the USDA. We have had a few phone calls. My firm, which is Greenspoon Marder, has an attorney in Washington, D.C., who used to work at the USDA, and she is spearheading this with a client of hers who they're working tirelessly to get the USDA to listen to Oregon's concerns in making the rules. And we're going to have one of those regulators come out to Oregon, and we're going to host a session on a farm and hopefully have a vigorous discussion with people who are writing the rules. And if anyone would like to participate in that, come see me after this. I'll give you my card and I'll be in touch, and you can come to that event and talk with the USDA regulator. I will say the one thing that they are absolutely adamant on is that the federal rules are not going to allow any more than 0.3% Delta-9 THC concentration in the plant matter. Even though in Oregon it's like it can be higher because we're testing 28 days before harvest, that also is going to be conformed to the federal rules. And the only thing that hemp farmers can do in Oregon if you have 0.3 is transfer to an all-CC processor or sealer. And yeah, I will open up to questions.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, do you expect the definition to remain to Delta-9 THC? Because there's a fair amount of cannabis that would qualify for hemp if that's the case. Yeah, I mean, just like last year I worked at a testing lab and every hemp field was going to pass because of the Delta-9 requirement versus THCA.
Yeah, that was definitely in the last phone call that we had with the regulators. That was a big topic of discussion. That's not my expertise, which is why we need growers to come and participate in the conversation. Because yeah, the law does say Delta-9, so there could be wiggle room potentially if it's, you know, different. Thank
you. Such amazing information. Thanks to also to Greenspoon Marder for sponsoring our lobby days with the NCIA this next week in DC. We really appreciate it. So I work for the NCIA, and one of the things that we've seen recently with the passing of the Farm Bill is we actually saw a seizure as well of hemp cargo coming from Kentucky to Colorado, and you went through all legal states. But when the cops and the dogs sniffed the terps, they deemed that that was high THC cannabis when it wasn't. So people were arrested, it was seized for a few days, they fought it, it ended up okay for the company. But how does this trickle down to law enforcement once all of this mess is fixed?
Excellent question. And that's what the law enforcement is saying. Like, how are we ever going to know what's hemp and what's cannabis? This is a huge law enforcement problem. And what's that? I have a solution. And Adam has a solution.
You should be able to move them both, right? You shouldn't have. Right.
Yeah. Let's move them both. Easy. Done. You know, in Idaho, they spent $250,000 on testing equipment so that they could do on-the-spot tests to see if it was under the 0.3% THC. So maybe that's a solution, but it doesn't prevent the harassment, you know, and the being pulled over and the, oh, that looks like cannabis, that smells like cannabis. We're gonna, like, you know, interrupt your day for several hours while we do these tests. So I don't really have a clear, that is gonna be a problem that's gonna unwind itself as the interstate commerce is common, and the federal rules come into play. Maybe that needs to be in the federal rules somewhere. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also your comment brings up a really good point too, and that is that it's not necessarily true that states right now that both have hemp programs would necessarily allow interstate commerce. Kamran brought up to me a case from West Virginia, and for a year or so, the West Virginia courts would not allow a West Virginia crop to go to Pennsylvania, even though both states had programs. And then finally, just recently, they said, okay, fine. The 2014 Farm Bill did just totally take out hemp from the Controlled Substances Act, so we're going to let that happen. But that's a good lesson to know. Both states had legal programs, and the courts were preventing the interstate commerce for a long time until just recently. So look at those states' laws until we get federal rules.
Hi. So I was wondering, you know, a lot of people are selling hemp-derived products online now, right? So first of all, is that legal? And then second of all, if you started some sort of online, you know, topical company, hemp-derived, right? Could you mail it to a state like Texas where it's still banned, or they're not producing it?
Yeah. So this is going to be more on Kamran's topic, but it all comes down to enforcement. It is not legal to have CBD in drug or supplements, food, and topicals under federal law. They're just not enforcing it. So, and the U.S. Postal Service has issued guidance on how you can mail CBD products. So there is that. You can mail them, but if you're sending them to states like Texas, you're risking arrest because it's still illegal there. They're not enforcing it. It's still very much in the gray area. It's still very much like in the discretion of the law enforcement and the government and how they want to enforce their laws.
Can you speak at all about what Texas is doing? What Texas is doing with their hemp programs? I know a big state, they have big plans to produce a lot. How's that going?
I wish I had more information. Our DC attorney who works on hemp is also licensed in Texas, and I tried to get information from her, and she tried to download it to me, and then I was like, you know what, I don't I know that they're working on it. It's still
Florida.
Oh, good.
Yeah, from Texas.
She knows.
Yeah, the House bill for producing hemp is
scheduled for discussion on the Senate floor, but our session ends at the end of the month. So there's all kinds of things that can happen, tactics that can stall it out. So we just have a couple of days to figure out what will happen with that. But they're really hopeful. It's a House Bill 1325, I think. But yeah, we'll see. Dan Patrick is our lieutenant governor, and he likes to put his personal vendettas against hemp and cannabis front. So we're as long as he's around, we're gonna have a lot of barriers. But yeah, scheduled for debate.
Pass the House.
All right, that's great.
Yeah.
Baby steps, baby steps.
Do you anticipate that there would be any barriers into internationally exporting from states such as Oregon, which already have programs with hemp products that are legally classed as such with the less than 3%?
That's a really good question. It's also not my expertise. Again, our DC attorney does do export, so she could answer that if you want me to put you in touch with her to get more information about that. As far as I know, it is going to be considered just a regular agricultural crop, but I don't know export laws enough to give you any.
Isn't China getting into the hemp export? I just read an article that China's getting into the hemp game. It's a big, huge deal, but I thought all that stuff was super illegal over there. Is that, I don't know. I have no idea.
It's only they've been leading the way before the rest of the world has. Apparently have the best genetics in the world. They just be very secret about it because that's kind of how China operates. But one of my friends works for a CBD company out of Colorado said that she flew 4 hours over hemp fields.
4 hours flying over hemp fields, and they actually have a lot of. There's some reports. I'll give you my card later. I can send them to you. I haven't really read them, to be quite frank. But there are a couple of really good reports out there on hemp out of China, and actually how we've been made to feel. And I started in this industry 8 years ago selling CBD hemp out of Colorado products, and at the time everyone was so scared about Chinese derived hemp because of a bunch of propaganda that it was terrible and it was filled with lead and contaminants. And in reality, what we're seeing now is this is not true. That the hemp is actually of very high quality.
My question is more for Mr. Smith. I was wondering, how does the legality of exporting cannabis work between two states who have a signed agreement, but when it requires transport in federal airspace or over land through states that don't have legal cannabis?
I can answer that. That's the one thing I forgot to mention, and then we started talking about transport. First of all, I'm never going to wear a tie again if it gets me called Mr. Smith. My dad is Mr. Smith.
You went to Washington.
No, I went to, yeah, I did. But cue the invisible hand joke. Here it comes. Okay, so the answer to that is, because the bill has a federal trigger, that we need the feds to actually say they will allow this to happen in some form, the idea is that we're going to fight to transport it by rail. So you could move it between states, you could drive it from here to Nevada, but if you put it on rail, the states in between can't touch it. And so then the question is, the feds have said they're not going to prosecute it. Okay, here it is. We need to, and again, we need to make this happen once to break a hole in the wall, and then everything starts crumbling around it. And the other thing I will say, is that once we do this, we're going to make states becoming legal much, much easier. I think what you're going to see is when states can just regulate retail and distribution, bring it in, we'll see very quickly a bunch of states go legal because of the ease of doing that. And I think I keep saying this is my secret drug policy reform project masquerading as an industry campaign. That I think we're going to be able to actually push the end of federal prohibition, because once states can essentially turn off federal prohibition and move product in and out between other legal states, then basically federal prohibition is reduced to defending the borders of Alabama or whoever doesn't want it in their state. And so that's sort of my secret plan. Shh. So rail is the short answer.
I'm not too familiar with why rail would, allow that loophole.
Because the rail is under federal jurisdiction,
Okay.
And so when it goes through states, the states can't touch it. It's why we transfer nuclear waste by rail, so none of the states can outlaw it moving through their state.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So,
Good
a little
clarification.
corridor of protection, but, you know, if the feds are on your side, it's protection.
All right, anyone else?
There's going to be a lot of hemp grown that don't meet the 0.3 THC requirements and considered hot hemp. Are the states regulating that individually, or was there anything in the Farm Bill that speaks to that?
Great question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming, so Oregon's hemp program says you have to confiscate it, destroy it, or you can transfer it. The recent amendments to the hemp bill are going to allow you to transfer to OLCC licensees, and you can have up to 1% that gets transferred to OLCC licensees. Yeah, I don't know. That's all I know.
Yeah. When you do have your meeting, that'll be part of the discussion is what happens to hemp that doesn't qualify. And I know that there are a lot of people who want to use it for biomass or have some other purpose for it besides just throwing it away.
Yeah. Oregon's program allows you to strip it of its leaves and use the stalks for fiber, or destroy it, or transfer to OLCC licensees. So yeah, hopefully that'll be in the federal regs.
This is kind of like the same question, sort of, but like, so what's the process for that? Because, for example, I have a good friend of mine who's growing like 2,000 pounds of hemp right now, and and it's kind of an experiment, I would say. Like, he doesn't know if he's going to get under that threshold. So I'm like, what's the process at that point? Like, let's say you come and you have like a ton, it's hot hemp. Like, and then how do you even start that process? Like, do you have to get an OLCC license in order to sell, or is there some kind of like, because that's like, that process is basically dead. So it's the producer licenses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the growers don't get the OLCC license. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do it that way when your field is planted. So you would transfer it to an OLCC licensee who has an endorsement. And Cameron has.
Actually, there is an OLCC certification program for hemp that was grown under the Oregon ODA registration. They put a moratorium on that for a while they were redrafting some of the ODA regulations. I believe it's back up and running, so it's an application, and you don't have to transfer the hemp to somebody else. You can actually transfer your hemp to an OLCC processor for processing. So.
Quick question. From the USDA, have you seen any language around standardization for testing for labs across states?
You guys are hitting on all the hot topics. That was the other really big issue. And obviously we want federal standardization. No, they don't know yet. The answer to that question was, we are working with our scientists.
What I don't understand, so we have 3 dispensaries in Salem, and so we have to get hemp-derived CBD products through Metric, but then, like Plaid Pantry can sell select strains pens, so it's like, how is that happening, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, there's 2 different kinds of hemp. There's what people are calling the open market hemp and the OLCC hemp. Once your hemp is in the OLCC system, it has to stay in the OLCC system. If it is truly just hemp that is 0.3% and under, it can stay in the open market and it can be sold anywhere.
And there's no standards for testing?
No, everything that's a consumable needs to be tested, regardless of where it's being sold. If it's for human consumption, it has to be tested the same as all cannabis in the state.
Is that only in the state of Oregon?
I only know about Oregon. Hopefully there'll be federal testing standards as well.
Okay, so the question I was wanting to clarify with the testing of hemp in the field, the 28-day, so that being 0.3, maybe total, as far as I read the new laws that are going to be implemented in January. Is that what the state is going off of? Because there's also a law that allows for up to 5% THC in a concentrate. So I'm thinking, can a hemp farmer still, in state, if it does maybe test hot, if it was decarbed, you know, it's like at harvest versus the pre-harvest testing, will that harvested material 28 days later that may test hot be allowed to be tested within Oregon, or sorry, processed within Oregon and still be legal?
So the 5% is within the OLCC system. So you would have to transfer it to an OLCC processor, and then you can create a hemp concentrate that's less than 5%.
So,
but the hemp program is 0.3% for all items.
so that means post-harvest as well?
Post-harvest, well, yeah,
That's what I'm saying,
the definition is being changed in this, in the new bill, so that hemp is 0.3%.
Post-harvest.
Delta 9.
But post-harvest
Just period.
is pre-harvest?
Yeah, post-harvest,
Okay.
period. Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
So I was just informed by the amazing people who are running this event that there is a cash box in the back of this, and they're taking donations, whether you paid coming in or not. And so, just to give you some context, we think that it's going to take about $2.5 million to get from here to 2021 to actually moving product. It's a guess, but that's what we think a national campaign is going to cost the next 2 years. That's not going to come mostly from Oregon, but that's our major fundraising will start really as soon as we get out of the state. So anything you gave now, $20, $100, $200, would be for the next 6 weeks, keep this project moving. It's a big deal. I hate asking for money. I know everybody's broke, but if you can spare anything for this campaign, there's a box back there, and thank you. Thanks.
Sorry.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, y'all. Great. Give it up, please, for